What if following God meant losing your fame, friends, and millions of dollars? For these 9 celebrities, choosing faith wasn't the safe route. It put everything on the line. Their money, their reputation, even their careers were at risk. The big question is, did they stay true to God and lose it all? Or did he have a greater plan waiting for them? So in this video, we will discuss 9 celebrities who chose God over Hollywood, risking fame, fortune, and even their careers to stay true to their faith. Number 1. Kevin Costner. Kevin Costner bet $38 million of his own money on a Western that Hollywood wanted nothing to do with because his faith told him it was time. And that risk paid off in a way no one could have predicted. When Costner created Horizon, an American saga, he wanted to show how God guided settlers when they had nothing else to rely on. Faith is what guided people out there to the unknown. They just leaned on it, he explained. Costner had always been religious. "I grew up a Baptist. Church was always a part of my life. My grandmother, the whole thing," he said. But Hollywood slowly pulled him away from his roots. Success from movies like Dances with Wolves and The Bodyguard filled his bank account, but left his soul feeling empty. Then came the realization, I've had hands over me for sure in my life. I also found that things come in their own time, and I think that's how my career has gone. Fast forward to Cannes 2024, Horizon earns an 11-minute standing ovation. Costner stands there with tears in his eyes, finally understanding what God's timing truly meant. "It's a funny business," he said, "and I'm so glad I found it." When you stop chasing Hollywood's approval and start following God's plan, people can sense the difference. Authenticity can't be faked. Number 2. Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris can roundhouse kick almost anything, except the emptiness that nearly destroyed his soul in the 1980s. Back then, Norris was the ultimate action hero. Walker, Texas Ranger, made him a household name, and his movies turned him into a symbol of strength. But behind the tough guy image, his life was falling apart. His marriage was broken, alcohol was taking over, and the void inside him was growing deeper. Norris grew up dirt poor in Oklahoma, raised by a single mother who prayed over him every night. She would tell him, "God has a plan for you." He thought martial arts and fame would make him strong enough to handle life, but he was wrong. "My dad was an alcoholic, a real drunk," Norris admitted, "and I partied myself to death trying to fill that void I had." Hollywood success couldn't heal him, and his first marriage ended after 30 years because he had lost sight of what truly mattered. Then he remembered his mother's prayers. He picked up the Bible again and returned to his faith. Unfortunately, in the entertainment industry, sometimes you lose sight of what's really important, he explained. Life began to change when he married his second wife, Gina. Together, they started reading the Bible every morning. Norris now openly credits God for saving his life. "I was always angry. I had a huge hole in my heart. Nothing made me happy. Then I married a God-fearing woman. Faith filled the emptiness that fame never could." Number 3. Chris Pratt. Chris Pratt knew exactly what would happen when he mentioned Jesus on live television. He'd get hate for it. And he was right. At the 2018 MTV Movie Awards, standing in front of Hollywood's elite, Pratt gave his now famous speech, "God is real. God loves you. God wants the best for you." It wasn't the kind of speech Hollywood wanted to hear. Publicists panicked, Twitter exploded, and critics rolled their eyes. But Pratt didn't care. He believed someone out there needed to hear it. Before he was Star-Lord in Guardians of the Galaxy or the dinosaur-taming hero of Jurassic World, Pratt was living in a van in Hawaii, barely scraping by. He worked odd jobs, fished for food, and drifted through life. But deep down, he knew God had bigger plans for him. Pratt grew up in Minnesota in an evangelical family, but left those roots behind when Hollywood came calling. By the time he landed his breakout role on Parks and Recreation, he was battling depression and drinking heavily behind the scenes. Fame couldn't fix the emptiness he felt inside. Then, faith came rushing back into his life. He started praying again, reading the Bible, and realizing that his success wasn't just luck, it was purpose. The MTV speech was his way of telling the world where he stood. "It's the way it is," Pratt later said. "It ain't nothing new. 2,000 years ago, they hated him too. Today, Chris Pratt is one of the few A-list actors in Hollywood unafraid to share his faith. His career proves that authenticity and a little courage can make a bigger impact than fame alone. Number 4. Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson risked his entire career and $25 million of his own money because he believed telling Christ's story was more important than Hollywood's approval. When Gibson decided to make The Passion of the Christ, every studio said no. Agents warned him it would be career suicide. Distributors refused to touch it. Friends told him to abandon the project. I thought, well, maybe I'll break even. Gibson later said, then all the majors wouldn't distribute it. I figured I'd lost the money. Gibson had already faced years of ups and downs in his career. From Braveheart to Lethal Weapon, he was one of Hollywood's most bankable stars. But personal struggles and controversies had left him looking for redemption. Making The Passion was his leap of faith, a way to honor God, even if it cost him everything. Then, just when all hope seemed lost, a small distributor called Newmarket stepped in. Against all odds, the film became a phenomenon. It earned $611 million worldwide, becoming the highest-grossing R-rated movie ever at the time. But the real impact wasn't just financial. Millions of people around the world were moved to tears, inspired, and reminded of their faith. Gibson had done what he set out to do: put the story of Christ on the big screen without compromise. By risking his career to honor God, Gibson found a different kind of success, one that couldn't be measured in box office numbers alone. Number 5. Dennis Quaid. Dennis Quaid's smile once lit up the big screen in films like Top Gun, The Right Stuff, and Great Balls of Fire. But behind the charm and the fame was a man spiraling out of control, battling a cocaine addiction that nearly cost him everything. Quaid first tried cocaine in the 1970s, and like many Hollywood stars of that era, he thought it was just part of the lifestyle. At first, it was fun. Then came the problems, and before long, the problems became his life. He described the downward spiral in 3 stages. It's fun. It's fun with problems. It's just problems. By the 1980s, Quaid's career was thriving, but his personal life was crumbling. He was snorting lines between takes, lying to himself, and sinking deeper into darkness. His wake-up call came when he realized he could lose not only his career, but his family and his life. I saw myself either dead, in jail, or losing everything I had, Quaid admitted. That was his breaking point. For the first time since childhood, he got on his knees and prayed. What followed was a life-changing spiritual journey. Quaid went through recovery, but he didn't just get sober. He rebuilt his life on faith. He began reading the Bible, attending church regularly, and viewing acting through a new lens. Today, Quaid uses his platform for something greater than fame. He stars in and produces faith-based films like I Can Only Imagine, sharing the message that saved him. He's found what he calls the joy of life, which he believes only comes from a real relationship with God. For Dennis Quaid, the Hollywood spotlight couldn't fill the void. Faith did. Number 6. Eddie Murphy. In the 1980s, Eddie Murphy was untouchable. Raw, Coming to America, and Beverly Hills Cop made him a comedy legend. His humor was sharp, his charisma magnetic, and his rise to the top seemed unstoppable. But behind the laughs, Eddie Murphy carried something much deeper. A quiet, grounding faith that kept him from crashing the way so many of his peers did. Murphy was raised in a Christian household and baptized Catholic. And while he never became a preacher of his beliefs, he always held on to Christian-based values. In interviews, he's admitted that those values became his anchor when fame brought temptations that could have destroyed him. I know that God is real, Murphy has said. There's been a bunch of times when I could have wound up crashing and burning. While other comedians of his era spiraled into scandals, addiction, or self-destruction, Murphy quietly avoided the same fate. His secret? A combination of faith, self-love, and prayer. I learned to love myself and never hated myself or beat myself up, Murphy explained. I have always been my biggest fan. As the father of 10 children, Murphy's relationship with God became even more personal. Prayer wasn't just a ritual. It became protection for himself and his family. His faith allowed him to navigate the chaos of Hollywood without losing his identity. Eddie Murphy's story is unique because his faith wasn't born from public scandal or a rock-bottom moment. Instead, it was a constant, quiet force that carried him through decades of fame. While the world laughed with him on screen, Murphy knew that his real foundation came from something far beyond the stage lights. Number 7. Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks may be one of the most beloved actors in the world, but his journey to faith was anything but simple. For decades, he carefully kept his beliefs private, navigating a childhood full of religious confusion. He grew up moving between homes and families, each with a different set of spiritual rules. The major religion I was exposed to in the first 10 years of my life was Catholicism, Hanks once shared. My stepmother became a Mormon, my aunt was a Nazarene, and in high school, all my friends were Jewish. By the time Hanks found fame, he'd drifted away from organized religion entirely. He was a rising Hollywood star, winning hearts in films like Big and Sleepless in Seattle. But deep down, he felt disconnected from anything spiritual. Everything changed when he met his wife, Rita Wilson. Rita is a devout Greek Orthodox Christian, and her faith became a turning point for Hanks. Every single day, I prayed to God. Every day for I don't know how many years, that he would bring me somebody that I loved and that loved me the same way, Hanks said. And he brought me Rita. Their marriage became the foundation of Hanks's renewed faith. The couple now regularly attends Greek Orthodox services together, and Hanks often speaks about the peace he's found in what he calls the great unanswered questions of life. Over the years, Hanks has even started ending interviews with Bible verses and words of encouragement, surprising those who only saw him as Hollywood's everyman. His 30-plus-year marriage with Rita is living proof that when God is at the center, love can withstand anything, even the pressures of Hollywood. For Hanks, faith isn't about preaching or grand gestures. It's about gratitude, reflection, and a quiet trust that life has a greater purpose than fame or awards. Number 8. Patricia Heaton. Patricia Heaton might be best known for making audiences laugh in sitcoms like Everybody Loves Raymond and The Middle. But behind the scenes, her faith has been the driving force of her life, even when it cost her dearly in Hollywood. Raised in a deeply devout Catholic family, Heaton's spiritual foundation was laid early. She often recalls the turning point in her childhood, losing her mother at the age of 12. That loss left a void that nothing in the world could fill. The beauty of being a Catholic, Heaton says, is knowing this is not the last time I will ever see my mother. We will be together again. That perspective shaped her entire life. Prayer became her anchor, and she describes having constant conversations with God in her head, a habit she's kept since childhood. But Hollywood doesn't always embrace outspoken believers. In 2004, Heaton's public stance on pro-life issues sparked intense backlash. She appeared at a pro-life event and immediately felt the industry turn against her. Casting directors stopped calling. Fellow actors distanced themselves. Hollywood's message was clear: keep your faith private or risk your career. Yet Heaton refused to compromise her convictions. She believed that staying silent about her values would be worse than losing roles. Over time, her career stabilized, and she even earned more success in television. But Heaton's story is a rare example of a celebrity who willingly risked fame for faith. She says her strength comes from seeing God's hand in every chapter of her life, from childhood tragedy to Hollywood triumph. I am Catholic. I was raised in a very devout family. My faith is just always there. It's who I am. For Patricia Heaton, walking with God isn't about celebrity approval. It's about eternal perspective, knowing that no award or sitcom can compare to living out her beliefs with courage. Number 9. Denzel Washington. Denzel Washington is widely regarded as one of Hollywood's greatest actors. But behind the Oscars and box office hits is a man who once believed his calling was not the silver screen. It was the pulpit. In 1975, a young Denzel was a lost college student, struggling to figure out his future. He had just flunked out of college and was considering joining the army. Then, during a YMCA camp experience, something extraordinary happened. A woman approached him and prophesied over his life, saying, "Boy, you are going to travel the world and speak to millions of people." At the time, Washington assumed she meant preaching. After all, he grew up in a Pentecostal household in Mount Vernon, where his mother took him to church 3 times a week. His foundation was faith, but acting soon found him first. He began with theater, then movies, and ultimately earned Oscar Gold. For years, Washington tried to separate his Hollywood career from his faith, keeping the two worlds apart. But then came a turning point: Hurricane Katrina. Witnessing the devastation and human suffering, Washington felt a deep calling from God. He realized his platform wasn't just for acting, it was for inspiring and uplifting millions, just as that prophecy had promised. From that moment, Washington became intentional with the roles he chose. He gravitated toward stories of redemption, integrity, and moral struggle, portraying characters that mirrored biblical principles. Behind the scenes, he began funding seminary students, supporting churches, and speaking at faith-based events. From Oscar-winning performances to spiritual mentorship, Denzel proves that faith and fame can coexist when God's calling comes first. He is living proof that a man can travel the world, speak to millions, and change lives, not by preaching in a church, but by being a light in the very heart of Hollywood. Fame fades, but faith lasts forever. These stars discovered that true success isn't measured in box office numbers, awards, or magazine covers. It's found in peace, purpose, and a life aligned with God's plan. Now we want to hear from you. Which celebrity's faith journey inspired you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read everyone. If you believe in choosing faith over fame, don't forget to like this video, share it with a friend who needs encouragement. Subscribe and tap the bell so you never miss another story of faith, courage, and transformation from Hollywood and beyond. Because in a world chasing the spotlight, these stories remind us where the real light comes from.